Welcome back, Hunters. Sky Sensei here with another video. I hope you guys are doing really well and enjoying Rise. I wanted to put out some builds that I've been using for the launch of Rise here. I'm still in the process of course, putting all my builds together because, of course, there's some RNG involved with set building, as is in all Monster Hunter games. But for now, I was able to manage to make a nice raw build for endgame purposes, so I thought I'd put it together for you guys here. If you are new to the Insect Glaive or to Monster Hunter Rise in general, I will go through some of the low and mid-rank build games that I used for this, just to get to the end of the story, and reach endgame gear. I'll also mention an alternative at the end of this video, so if you want to skip right to the endgame gear, check out the timestamps below. Alright, jumping on in, let's start with low rank. Basically for low rank, you really don't care too much about skills, just buy some of the armor for higher defense, but you don't really need to buy them all. Don't waste your money on it, save it for later. For Insect Glaive, the Bone Glaive was very helpful. Nice raw damage with no affinity penalty. For those of you who are new again, affinity on the right side here means that it's your chance of hitting a critical hit, which basically deals more damage on weaker parts of the monster body. Crit is always very helpful for blade weapons, so for this build that I used in LR, I mostly just looked for critical eye skills. Faster or higher damage basically means faster huts, which means I could progress through the game much quicker. The Azuchi head, Tobi Kadachi, or the Narga chest later on both give crit eye. I also went with the alloy arms, again just a little bit more critical eye here. So that's pretty much what we used there. If you are struggling a little bit, try to find some more skills with defense, just to get you started. The one thing I would suggest in LR is getting the Ludroth legs. Now these give power prolonger, which is a great skill to boost your Kinsect duration buff. This is really helpful in a fight, especially for low and high rank monsters when you're just trying to keep up with the monster, It keeps the flow and you don't need to worry about your Kinsect buffs as often, and you can either instead focus on just damaging the monster. Now, moving on to mid-game, this build pretty much carried me through the rest of the game, story-wise at least, and even most of HR. The weapon is the Magnamalo weapon. Now I have it upgraded here, but you can start off with the base version after you finish Magnamalo in LR. The base one has a good raw damage, a little bit of blast in there, but that's fairly neutral damage for most monsters, so I think it really works out really well. As you progress through the game, just try to level up this Magnamalo as best you can. Now the build itself, again, has some critical eye because we're just looking for that high damage. The Azuchi helmet, again, this time it came with some extra speed sharpening. This is the HR version of the helmet. The chest I used was the Kamura, again, HR again, particularly because of the Wirebug Whisper. Now, I don't know if this really helps too much in the recovery rate of wirebugs on Insect Glaive. Insect Glaive generally has a high recovery rate for the wirebugs, but I was still learning the wirebug and I used it quite a bit more often than I really should have, and I imagine you are too, as we're all new to the wirebug, so don't worry about it if you're using this wirebug way more or not using it tactically. It definitely takes some practice. So having that increased recovery was very helpful for me for most hunts. Also, it just has critical eye anyway, so it was perfect. There's clearly a pattern to this video, guys. I love my critical. The waist was the Ignoct coil, and I used that for power prolonger. Now this was very helpful and necessary, specifically because I used the Kinsect, the Foe Beetle. The Foe Beetle, it's not equipped at the moment, sorry, but the Foe Beetle is a Kinsect assist type, which has a significantly reduced timer for Kinsect buffs. So you're always constantly worrying about your Kinsect buffs, so using the Ignoct coil for me in mid-game was very helpful because I could get Power Prolonger 3, adding to my Ludroth legs that were LR. Overall, I had that Power Prolonger 3, which was able to maintain my Kinsect buffs for a decent amount of times in most hunts all throughout HR. As you level HR, you can move on to better gear as well. Pick things that might help boost your damage a bit until you finish the game. Now, we finally reach endgame here. Now this set is post-story, or if you're actually waiting for story, you need to be at least HR 7 to build this specific set. I will say, just as a preface here guys, there are many builds out there, right? This is not the only version. There's many permutations for a good set. This is just one of them. This is my 100% crit rate raw damage build. It utilizes the amazing Nargacuga Insect Glaive, which comes instantly with 40% affinity, and it's one of the better weapons out there just because it has that white sharpness. So a very nice blade, and it also just looks really cool. Now, before we move on with the rest of the build, I will say that this build got really lucky because I got lucky with my talisman. In endgame, you are going to be building sets based on your talismans that you get. This is the RNG part of Rise. You could get lucky like me and get 2 weakness exploit charms here. Now quite honestly, there could be a better charm out there. I don't know. I just haven't been lucky to get it. So I'll talk about this charm first and we'll talk about the build with this. There is another way to make this build without this charm, and I'll talk about that right at the end after I talk about this build. As I already mentioned before, Weakness Exploit gives that increased affinity on weak spots only though. So this is a higher tier skill that's going to work only if you use the weapon well and can time your attacks on those weak spots consistently for each monster that you fight. Basically, you want yellow numbers all the time. If you're missing and you're hitting white numbers all the time, you're not going to be able to use Weakness Exploit really effectively. So yeah, so the talismans real quickly come from the merchant dude. You can do the Wisp of Mystery that gives a random one, or the Moon Bow, which you can request a specific one. But again, after this, it's all out of your hands, it's all RNG, and the chances are pretty slim of getting a good charm that A, comes with good perks, good skills, and B, needs some good decoration slots. So this will take a while. I would highly suggest you make sure you always have one of these running. Every hunt that you do, one pot finishes and you can set up to 10. So always have at least 4 to 5 ready so that even if you do multiple hunts in a row, you can still get all your talismans. Okay, back to the build. So after the charm, if you do want to finish off Weakness Exploit, I use the Zinogre Helmet. That gives me instantly 50% crit on all weak spots. Now if you think about it, that boosts us up all the way to 90, including the 40% that we got from the weapon. So I use the Narga chest piece here to finish off my critical eye with 2 crit eyes, landing us at the infamous 100% crit. Evade window also comes with the Narga chest piece, and I think evade window is more than enough in Rise. It's a great dodge. You don't really need more than that. From there, I started building my attack boost. Now in World, attack boost wasn't as helpful, but in Rise, they've changed it from simply adding raw damage numbers to a percent system after level 4. So you're getting much higher raw damage based off of your weapon choice. So overall, I mean, attack boost won't be helpful on element weapons, but anything that's raw damage, it'll be superb. So for attack, I went with the Anjanath gloves and the coil. Both of them give level 2 attack, and I built a level 2 attack jewel that I added to the coil, which is why the number is green. The green indicates that they've been augmented by a jewel. So in the end, we ended off with 6 because it also includes 1 on my weapon, which was another attack jewel. I don't know if I can fit 7 on this build with 100% crit. Maybe if I get a godsend charm, I can add that and change up my build again. But with 100% crit, I was really happy with it. So we moved on to the final piece here, and I wanted some critical boost so that all my attacks that are getting 100% crit have now extra damage. The Rajang legs fit this perfectly with crit boost too. And yeah, that's the build, guys. That's just a quick breakdown of the build and where it came from and my thoughts about the build itself. Again, there's many ways to do this, and this is just one. Now, if you don't have that Wex charm that I had, here is an alternative way that you can still get 100% crit. There is another Wex 2 that's on an armor piece that you can get. If you go to the Argosy and then you scout some herbs, one of the materials that you can get is called the Toxic Kamori. It is a bonus material, by the way. So you'll have to scout a couple times, use the bargain speed booster so you get it within 1 to 2 hunts, and then you can craft the 2 Wex, the Spio set coils. Now this is beautiful, but if you remember back to my build, this replaces the Anjanath coil, which had attack boost 3. So you're losing a little bit of attack, but if you don't have the Wex charm, then it's just another way to get that 100% crit. And honestly, that extra 50% crit, or actually it's even more than that because it's Wex 2. So that extra 50% is huge. It's much better than losing a little bit of that attack. It's well worth it. If you guys have attack charms, you know, maybe you can use that. You might have some better charms that you can put on to make this set even better by using these coils. I don't have any attack charms, so Sag, but I went with my other build. So yeah, play around with it, guys. Keep melting charms, see what you get, and then build around those charms. That's really how you get these endgame builds. So I hope this helps you guys. I'm going to be posting more builds as I progress through the game for IG and other weapons coming up next week. So be sure to keep it locked by subscribing for more Monster Hunter content right here on the channel. If you'd also like to hug with me, I am usually live most days of the week on Twitch, so you can come over there, hang out with us in the community. You can also join our Discord, and we can find some time to hunt, or you can just talk about anything that you want to talk about for Monster Hunter Rise. That's it for me, guys. Sky Sensei heading out for the weekend. As usual, hunters, be happy, stay safe, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei is out.